Okay, day 195. This is part one. A little bit of computer issues this morning, so we're going to have to do this in pieces, unfortunately. But yesterday I talked about kind of the DynCorp sheriff, and I used some terms where people might not know what that means if they haven't seen the series up until now. I also used the phrase Mina Airport. People might not know what the significance of Mina Airport is. So there's a lot of really good stuff. I went back actually and looked at some of the earlier stuff that I did before I kind of went on the road. Back in Oregon and with the big monitor and everything. Man, that monitor was fantastic. And all the searches, the 1,000 searches a day that I was doing, and as well as all the researchers, and summarizing it as I went. So it really is worth going back if you want to look at some of, at least episode 1 of every day, because it really does summarize and build up to now what I'm saying, and you'll see all the research that's gone into it as well, and I think that makes people feel more comfortable that this isn't some conspiracy theory or whatever. But so, starting with Mina Airport, I mean, the drug business really starts with the CIA, in the inception of the CIA. Lucky Luciano is the gangster they employ to do the dirty work. They go down to Cuba, they bring in the drugs from Turkey through Italy to Cuba. They pack these oranges, wax oranges, with heroin. And initially, the drug business is just going to be for black people. They're just going to give it to black musicians in Harlem and New Orleans and maybe a few other places. Maybe bring it up through Chicago, through the kind of the jazz line that runs from New Orleans to Chicago, you know, Kansas City, etc. Really, the blues line, they used to call it, St. Louis. But as profits go and as greed goes, it expanded beyond, obviously, the black music scene to the kind of Latin music scene, you know, into Florida, all through the, you know, Cuba, Puerto Rico, etc. But then it found white audiences would be going to these great performances at the Cotton Club and different places in Cuba where they'd go on vacation, and then they started trying cocaine at these parties as well, and heroin. So you end up in the 60s with these epidemics for the first time in our major cities, where it's mainly through those old musicians' lines that the original rat lines are developed. And it's really important to understand that this rat line was different than the old Al Capone rat line. The old Al Capone rat line for beer and wine and spirits and so forth really developed out of the Teamsters. The Teamsters, going all the way back to New York, were required for refrigerated wagons to take meat and ice and so forth. So you want to keep the beer cold, you had to deal with the Teamsters. So going back all the way to the Teamsters, they've been involved in the kind of the spirits business ever since then. And you really kind of had J. Edgar Hoover's FBI and the Teamsters and that whole rat line versus this new rat line with the CIA and drugs. And there's been this conflict in America ever since. Now they've come together with the Joint Terrorism Task Force and so forth, and McCabe and all that, the last 20-year history. So now the CIA kind of came into the FBI through the Counterterrorism Division, and now it's completely overtaken. That was the CIA kind of infiltration. They've kind of completely taken over the FBI. So that is where we stand today. But it wasn't always like that. And in the early days, the CIA had these airplanes, they had these helicopters, and so they used a major contractor, which was DynCorp, which was using kind of the mechanics that were fixing the planes and so forth and keeping the planes in the air. And they said, well, hey, as long as we're taking a new part down to wherever, we may as well load it up with guns and have a revolution, and we'll make a lot of money off the rat line we create down there. And then people who were flying it back said, hey, this thing's empty, why not fill it up with cocaine or heroin or whatever, fly it into a military airport, and we'll have a, you know, we'll be able to start a rat line in the U.S. And that's how this whole DynCorp thing started. So throughout the series, you're going to see a lot of things about DynCorp. A DynCorp sheriff is someone who was in a military police unit teaching people in military police in a remote country how to create a rat line. It could be in Kosovo, it could be in Haiti, it could be in Afghanistan, it could be in Pakistan, it could be in Iraq. These are all countries where, Colombia, these are all countries where DynCorp has military police contracts. And the idea now is, it's matured, you bring back that DynCorp sheriff now who's been used to running all these rat lines. I'm talking about child trafficking, I'm talking about drug trafficking, I'm talking about organ harvesting. Believe it or not, Kosovo starts that in 1999. And you bring them back and you put them into a county. And then you run these rat lines. And that's where I'm talking about Sheriff Pfizer. We're going to go to Wilmington, Ohio, and we're going to talk about that more. But the original Madame Curie, if you will, or the original Ray Kroc of the drug business was Hillary Clinton. Bill Clinton, I mean, I've gone to Arkansas many times, interviewed people. Bill Clinton really did not care about money. He just cared about being liked. And if you go there today and you ask people if they know Bill Clinton, they'll say yes, and he knows the names of my kids. The man just loves people. And I know all the bad stuff, but the man just loves people, and he genuinely does not care about money. Now, he does care about cocaine. I'm not saying he doesn't like cocaine, and all the stuff that comes with a cocaine party, but Hillary really was the business mind right from the get-go for Mina Airport. Now, you have to remember, they're flying drugs in Iran-Contra. This is even before Iran-Contra. The Vietnam War ends. In Vietnam, we had an operation called Duck Soup, which these Hmong tribespeople that got brought down from China are growing the opium, and then they're flying it from Laos over to near the demilitarized zone, and they're selling the heroin to U.S. soldiers from 1963-ish to 1975 when the war ends. And that really is the key way of making money. When that ends, there needs to be some other revenue stream. It's kind of like McDonald's shutting down all of, thousands of stores. You need to open 1,000 stores somewhere else. And that becomes the Iran-Contra. What begins the Iran-Contra? Iran-Contra, that, as we know it, the crisis doesn't start till later. But starting in 1976, a guy named Barry Seal starts flying cocaine, which is kind of the substitute drug, up to Baton Rouge to Louisiana. And where the Clintons get involved in Mina Airport is they shut Barry Seal down in Baton Rouge in, I believe, 1981, 82. It starts getting a little dicey but anyway, in 1981, that's when Barry Seal moves to Arkansas and opens up the franchise in Mina Airport. And it's a longer flight. I mean, flying from Nicaragua or wherever, El Salvador, Guatemala, wherever he was flying from, I think Nicaragua mostly. You fly right over Baton Rouge, and I'm sure he was thinking, man, this is costing me extra fuel. And that's why Hillary Clinton, in a way, is Avis. She had to try harder. She really organized it to the point where you fly into the airport, you have a helicopter then take the drugs to a different location, so it's not so obvious with people filming, to your trucks. If you put them in Tyson chicken trucks, then nobody's going to notice, and you drive them to the Tyson chicken processing plant for later distribution. No one's going to notice. So you can stuff the chickens with cocaine, and then they can go off. You can have one box with the cocaine chickens. If you watch the series, you'll see I have these little things like Pakistani mangoes and cocaine chickens. And then they go all over the country. And that is what happened. They literally had people driving to Walmart parking lots where their trunk was so full of money they couldn't close the trunk. And if you listen to Larry Nichols, a good friend of the Clintons and so forth, you'll hear these stories. And the whole idea here was, let's not have Bob's Rent-A-Truck or 3 Men in a Truck and have all these kind of disorganized outlets for the rat lines. Let's use a major carrier that's in a national carrier like a Walmart or a Tyson's Chicken to really McDonaldize or franchise this drug business. And that's really, that's why I call Hillary Clinton kind of the Madame Curie of the drug business. She really brought some innovations because she had to try harder. And if you watch the movie The Firm, which is John Grisham, it's going to be about Mina Airport and the Rose Law Firm. All the innovations of creating foundations to fund things, and then having a self-congratulatory dinner on top of it for funding your own drug operations. These are all Hillary Clinton innovations. Where it was usually a guy in the parking lot delivering money in the back of the Walmart parking lot with the trunk full of money. Hillary Clinton's innovation was, let's make that a foundation. Let's give that to us as a gift to ourselves in front of a lot of people, and let's have an awards dinner and invite a lot of celebrities. So So all this stuff that the Clinton Foundation became really had its roots there, to where now the people actually believe they're real awards. You know, like the awards for Haiti and so forth. They actually think that there was humanitarian things done to deserve those awards. So it's really kind of come full circle. And then the rat line, I was traveling last week, coming up from Arkansas into Chicago, and Chicago being a major distribution point for the Midwest, another innovation she had, kind of like Hamburger U and Ray Kroc again, thinking in terms of distribution points and really making it a business that's a sustainable, repeatable business. So when I talk about DynCorp sheriffs, I've just explained what that is. Mena Airport, I've just explained what that is. You're going to find a sheriff near the airport, near an airport. Sometimes they have their own helipads, these sheriffs. You're going to find the helicopters close to the airport. You're going to find some major producer, packing plant, chicken, sometimes it's fruit, anything that'll throw, sometimes it's coffee, anything that'll throw off the dogs, where they say, well, geez, I mean, the dogs are barking at a meat truck. I mean, does that surprise you? So this will be installment 1. Sorry, I have to do this in pieces because of the PC. But the key concepts in this are really the history of CIA and drugs, and the history of Mena Airport, and the history of DynCorp sheriffs. And that's going to set up the Sheriff Lopez in Siskiyou County in California. That's going to set up the understanding of the Bob Mosers in Fauquier County in Virginia. And even people who don't necessarily have DynCorp background, if you create a quorum of these sheriffs in the U.S., and hopefully a preponderance, a majority in time, not quite there yet, then it just becomes everyone has to conform, get in line, or else, you know, the Secret Service is going to come take you out. And that's where we are today, or ATF through a intermediary. That's where we are today. So I'm going to talk about each county, 3,000 counties, a little bit more than 3,000 counties in the U.S., and where we are with those. Then drill into one particular county, which is going to be Clinton County. Clinton County. A lot of these operations, you have your choice. The U.S. is kind of a board map of 3,000 little risk spots, and you can choose where you want your rat lines. If I want a rat line in Delphi, Indiana, I pick a packing plant. I bring in illegal immigrants to the packing plant. Or there's a Clinton County in Quad Cities in Iowa. Same thing. We're going to find the whole fake visas and the collapsing the convenience stores and false identities and all that. So you can pick, and a lot of times they have picked Clinton counties. A lot of times they've picked places with the name Springfield because of kind of the Homer Simpson thing. They have kind of an insider's humor about all this, a little wink in all this. And that sometimes helps the investigation. Plainfield, a lot of times they'll pick places called Plainfield is another example. So, long one this morning. I didn't mean to record this long, but sorry about the circumstances. We'll go on to talk about DynCorp sheriffs, Mena airports, franchising, the drug business.